everybody, welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I, your host Rebecca, aka Crafting Journey, recap live trials. Yeah. Now, currently, we're covering the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell, which is not live because the judge would not allow cameras or phones or any kind of recording device into the courtroom. So I get my information each night from East Idaho News. Nate Eaton, he's been doing a great job of covering this trial. And so each night the audio is released. I do listen to the audio as well. But it's nice to have Nate's recaps, so to speak. Sometimes he'll come live on his lunch. Today he came live on his lunchtime from the court. He's in the courtroom. He went into the back seat of his car and he's eating his banana and he's telling us what happened in court yesterday. So a very interesting day. The prosecution put on 2 witnesses, and I do have a huge announcement, so watch to the end, because you don't want to miss what I have to tell you, because it's huge. Yeah, anyway, so both sides are done. Yeah, all the evidence is in. The first person on the stand yesterday, Tuesday morning, was Nicole Heidemann. Now, she's been on the stand before, but she came on the stand this time for a particular reason. She's the FBI data analyst, and she took a good look at the story of James and Elena, this book that was written by Chad for Lori, and it's about James and Elena. He's supposed to be James, she's supposed to be Elena, and I'm going to do a separate video where I actually read this story, chapters 1 and chapter 2. How about that? I think it's only 2 chapters. It's not a lengthy story by any means, but a little salacious. So if you want to hear it, I will put up another video. I can't put the link yet because I don't have it. Oh, I could afterwards. Okay, I'll put the link up there once I get it, because I'm recording this first, obviously. I know. I need more coffee. Got my gnome cup. I got this at the crafting retreat that I went to last year, which I'm going to again this year. It's in June, and I hope to pick up some more cups and some more pens. Like, I don't have enough pens here. There's 6 pens here, but I need more, right? Okay. So Nicole Heidemann, she was asked to discuss the similarities between the real Chad and Lori and what was happening in this love story between James and Elena. And she said everything is pretty much exact, the story of Chad and Lori. So the story begins on October 26th when James and Elena meet at a conference. Now, this is exactly the day that Lori and Chad met at a conference in St. George, Utah, in 2018. Then she talks about how, like, in mid-November, they both go to a temple. And in real life, in mid-November, Chad and Lori went to a temple. So, like I said, I'm going to read that story in a separate video. So we won't go through all of this, because she did read excerpts from it. And the judge admitted it as not an exhibit, what does he call it? For demonstrative purposes. So I don't know that the content of this 2 chapters will go back to the jury. I'm not sure about that. Man, I'd be squawking, I want to read it, Judge. Yeah. Then we had Nicholas Edwards, who's the lead investigator with the Attorney General's office in Idaho, and he was investigating the shooting of Tammy that occurred on October 9th, the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell on October 9th of 2019. He was also investigating, the missing persons of Tylee and JJ. He was trying to find them. He was involved in the search of the Daybell property. He actually is the one that went out and looked around the property and noticed that mound under the tree and thought, that's kind of strange. And he was present when the bodies were dug up from their shallow grave sites. He said when he saw JJ, he thought of his own son. So kind of sad. So he talked about on the day that Tammy was shot at, Tammy Daybell, on October 9th, 10 days before she actually really died. She pulls into her driveway, her front driveway, at 9, just after 9 o'clock that night. She had been at her clogging class, and she had some groceries and some stuff in the back seat of the car. So she's going to get that stuff out of the back seat when this man approaches her with what she thinks is a paintball rifle. It's actually an assault rifle with a scope on it, and we believe wielded by Alex Cox. So what this investigator said was between 9:12 a.m. that day and 2:28 a.m., there were over 90 calls between Alex, Zulema, the woman he later married, Alex, Zulema, Chad, and Lori. 90 phone calls. And then there's a lengthy conversation between Chad and Alex after the shooting occurs. They were communicating between 8:28 and 9:29 p.m. There's constant communication between the two, and this occurred at 9:15 p.m. Now, the thing that we didn't know that this investigator said that was Tammy usually parked in the back of the home. There's a drive in the back of the home that she used to park at, and I suspect that Alex probably thought she was going to be in the back, and she probably caught him off guard, and that threw off the whole thing. The gun it misfired, and she was not shot, but she was killed 10 days later. And then this investigator also read messages between Chad and Lori the morning of Tammy's death, which I talked about yesterday, where, he's texting her saying how much he wants her, and on the morning that his wife is died, and he's talking about how he can't wait for his parents to go home, and he wants to see her, but he has to get rid of his parents first, and he's got financial stuff to take care of, and he has to go to the mortuary. I don't know, just strange, very strange. So that's what happened there. So once the prosecution rested, of course, now we're all wondering, is she going to take the stand? Is Lori Vallow Daybell going to take the stand in her own defense? So her lawyers actually said, we need a few minutes to talk to our client, and so can we just have a room? So they were put into a room, and they talked for a little while. They come back out. Of course, Lori's, she's smiling and all that good stuff, and she's not taking the stand. Defense rested. No evidence. None. No defense to any of these charges. She did not put on a defense. None. Not only did she not take the stand, she did not put on a defense. I'm thinking like an expert to say what a nutbag she is, or how it's... I don't know what... I'd have to really think about that long and hard if I were representing her, what I would do to defend this. I don't know that there is a defense to it. The evidence is pretty overwhelming, that they were plotting and planning to get rid of these demons out of these people. And if they had to kill the corporeal body to do it, they were going to. Because they were transcended beings. Yes. Okay. So what happens next? Procedurally, the defense rests. They indicate, no, she's not going to take the stand, so they rest. Then they did what they called a judge. They asked the court for a judgment of acquittal, and they argued it before the judge. And that's a routine motion. I've talked about this before. It's called different things in different states, but what it is basically is saying, in the light most favorable to the state, because that's the standard, the state has not proven their case. They have not put enough evidence in to say that beyond a reasonable doubt, that anyone could conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that Lori committed all these crimes. Murders of Tylee and JJ, conspiracy to commit murders of Tylee and JJ, conspiracy to commit the murder of Tammy. You know, there's not enough evidence for all of this. I disagree. Maybe not the actual murders, but absolutely the conspiracies. That's just my opinion. So the judge said he would reserve ruling, and that's not unusual, but usually it's just denied outright. No, denied. And this is more of a procedural thing to reserve your appellate rights as a defendant, because some appeals may be waived if you don't make that motion. So everyone always makes it. But several times the defense commented, no, she's not going to take the stand because we don't believe the state has proven her case. That's a hell of a gamble. If that's why she's not taking the stand because you think the state hasn't proved their case, you're wrong. I think you're wrong. So then the judge came back in, and they took a break. They all come back in, and then they talk about the scheduling. So apparently, this is late afternoon by the time all this, because there's back and forth. Oh, there was this one argument. Oh my gosh, the prosecution, after 2 years of having the indictment in this case that was issued by a grand jury, wanted to make a change in the indictment because there was a clerical error in the footnote of the indictment. They mentioned the wrong number of statute, like it was supposed to be 3A instead of 4B or something like that. So what happened was the footnote referenced grand theft with intent to deprive another as the actual charge, but everywhere in the text of the indictment and the headline of the indictment, it said that she was charged with grand theft by deception, and that has to do with receiving the Social Security money, which she's also charged with. And I think she'll go down for that as well, because that's proved beyond a reasonable doubt. She was receiving Tylee's Social Security from, benefit from the death of her father. She was receiving JJ's Social Security benefit from the death of his father. And she was receiving Social Security from the death of Charles Vallow, who she's charged with conspiracy to commit murder in another state. We haven't even gotten to that trial. So the judge was like, wait a minute, all of you've got a whole team of attorneys over there, and you've just rested your case, and now you're coming to me to fix an error in the indictment? I mean, he allowed it because it was all over the text what the actual charge was. He allowed it. Of course, the defense was like, no, this is a fatal error, Your Honor. No. And he's like, no, I'm going to allow it. It's ridiculous. So 2:30 by the time they finished up all this, bickering back and forth about this, that, and the other. So the judge says Wednesday they're going to work on jury instructions. And so he sent the jury home, and it looks like they'll finish up the jury instructions, and then Thursday they're going to have court again, probably read the jury instructions if they have them finished, read the jury instructions, and then we should get closing arguments on Thursday. And possibly, because I don't think either side is going to take too long to do a closing argument, maybe prosecution might take their time. I think their opening was only about 40 minutes, but the defense, not very long at all. So we'll see what kind of closing they do. I mean, they put on no case. You have to convict my client beyond a reasonable doubt. And then they'll talk about what is reasonable doubt, and, and then at the end they'll say, don't click, please find my client not guilty. And that'll be it. So here's the announcement. This is one of the things the judge came through. The media got together and did a request to the judge saying, listen, presentation of the evidence is over. You ordered that there be no cameras or recording devices during the presentation of the evidence. It's over. We would like to have cameras in the courtroom for the verdict. And he granted the motion. And they said, hey, we'll come in, we'll put in our cameras, we'll set it all up. He's like, no. It's going to be on the court's YouTube channel. I did not know that this little court in Idaho has a YouTube channel. In any case, I will be covering live as well. I have the link to the courtroom feed, and I will be covering it live. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, like in the middle of my nap. I don't know when this is going to happen, but I will have my phone on for the most part, 24/7, watching to see if there's a verdict. And as soon as that happens, I will do my darndest to bring it to you. And we'll watch it together. It'll be fun. I always say that. And then I go live, and then we sit and we wait. And we wait. That's probably what's going to happen this time. Oh, the other thing that happened yesterday, EMTs get called to the courthouse because Larry Woodcock, that's the wife of Kay, that's the husband of Kay Woodcock, who is the grandmother of J.J. Vallow, so the grandparents of J.J. Vallow. He wasn't feeling well. He was a little overwhelmed by everything going on in the court and not feeling well as a result of that. And they came and they took care of him and left. It was not a big deal at all. So, thank God, Okay, let's take a look at the crime calendar today. Oh, there was another case that started yesterday, another trial. Let me just talk about it briefly. If you guys want me to cover it, let me know in the comments if you would like me to continue covering this case. It feels to me like sort of after the Lori Vallow Daybell, where there's so much stuff going on, this one feels very narrow, very, very open and shut, if you will. This is a case out of New Hampshire, the county of Rockingham. Brandon Castiglione is charged with the October 1st, 2019 shooting of Luis Garcia. Now, Luis Garcia I did listen to the opening statements. Luis Garcia was a worker that was working inside the home. Now, they both knew each other. They had met in the Pentecostal church about a year before that. This was Brandon's father's home. His father's name is Mark. This was Mark's home, and Luis was helping kind of redecorate. He was sanding and painting the bedroom on this particular day. He was sanding and painting a bedroom across from Brandon's bedroom. Now, Brandon is an adult. He looks young. I'm curious how old he really is, but apparently didn't have a job because everybody's gone to work. And what Mark's usual habit was he would go to work, and then on his first break about 9:30, he would call Luis and say, what are you working on today? And they would discuss it. And this time he called Luis, and Luis didn't answer. So he called him again at 11:42, still no answer. Calls him again at 12:14, still no answer. And now Mark calls his daughter and says, listen, I'm worried, Luis is not responding to my phone calls, and he usually comes over and does work at the house every day, and he's pretty thorough and consistent, and this is very unlike him. So she goes over there with another person. I'm not sure who this other person is, but she and this other person go over to the house. They knock on the windows, the doors, nobody's answering, and then so they call back their father, Mark, and they say, nobody's answering the door, and everything's locked up. So he tells them where there's a key hidden, and they go find the key, and they go in, and they find Brandon is on the floor next to the body of Luis Garcia, and Brandon is talking in tongues. Now, the 911 is called, the police come. They actually were called before they entered the home. They were called for a welfare check. But by the time they get to the home, Lewis's body has been discovered. He's dead. So, but when they go in and they see this guy talking in tongues next to the body, the gun is just a few feet away from this guy that's talking in tongues, and it's his gun. They're like, they didn't, they were a little stymied by this. I listened to the first officer that responded, and he said it was a pretty bizarre scene. And it is. If you've never seen anybody that's talking in tongues the way these Pentecostal people do, it's strange. It is really strange. It's happened to me. I had a baby when I was a neonatal nurse come out. It was a normal vaginal delivery. The baby comes out dead, and I'm trying to resuscitate this baby, and the father is at my feet talking in tongues. It was so unnerving, so unnerving. In any case, back to that case. So one of the first officers on the scene, he takes Brandon into custody pending further investigation. They put him in the back of their police car, and during the investigation they find out that the bullets and the casings that are found match a box of shell casings in the bedside table of Brandon, and that the gun belongs to Brandon. So now we're here for the shooting of Luis Garcia by Brandon. So here's what the defense argued, that this was a very shoddy police investigation, that once they saw Brandon and they figured out it was his gun and that those were his bullets, they just jumped to conclusions and never looked at anybody else. Apparently, there was something sent for DNA or the gun, I guess. They couldn't get any prints off the gun, which that's not surprising. But they wanted DNA off the gun. And once they had Brandon's DNA, they didn't test for anybody else. The police told the lab, no, don't do any further testing. We've got our guy. So that was the defense. So we'll see how this case proceeds. If you want me to cover it, let me know if you want me to continue to cover it, because it looks like we're wrapping up the Lori Vallow thing. So I don't think this is going to be a long trial by any means. Certainly not the 25 days like we've had in Lori Vallow. Daybell case. So let's go back to the murder of Rebecca Witt on the crime calendar. It is Wednesday, May 10th. This afternoon I will be doing Craft With Me Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That's, what time is that? 7:30 Eastern, and so on and so forth. All right, so we're up to part 3, the shooting. So the first part was where we talked about the trip that students Rebecca Witt and Claudia Brenner took to the Appalachian Mountains, and then they came upon this guy, Stephen Carr, who they were trying to get away from, so they changed their campsite, and they had ate dinner. They had spent the day hiking, they had ate dinner, they were relaxing, they were starting to have sex, and 80 feet away, Carr was watching them. That's where we left off. Okay. So, Carr opens fire on Witt and Brenner when they were starting to have sex. That's terrible. Brenner, who was sitting up, was hit in her arm and face and twice in her neck before Witt shouted at her to get down. She pressed her body against the ground but was shot once more on the top of her head. Witt had been shot twice, once in the head and once in the back. The latter shot ruptured her liver. Carr fired an 8th shot, but it missed both women. When the barrage was over, Witt found herself unable to stand, so Brenner went to get help. She made her way to the nearest road, 3 miles away. Oh my God. Then hitched a ride to the police station in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. She told police everything except that she and Witt were lesbians. She didn't tell them that. When the police responded to the scene, they found Witt had died from her injuries. Brenner learned of Witt's death while she was in the hospital being treated for her own injuries. Oh, that is so sad. Oh my, who cares if they were lesbian? What does that have to do with anything? Oh my God. Okay, so tomorrow, part 4. This is going to last all week. Oh my gosh, yeah. 4 and 5 to come, Thursday and Friday. Okay, guys, don't forget, I'm going to do a separate video with the story of James and Elena. The love story of James and Elena. It'll be like an audible book that you can listen to while you craft. Don't forget to share this video with someone who you think might enjoy listening to trial recaps while they're crafting. Why not, right? And leave a thumbs up. Yeah. All right, guys. I will see you tonight at 6:30 if you're interested. I'm not sure what craft I'm going to do. Not positive at all. I'll see you then. Bye.